I'm getting tired of hearing about Kelsey Mitchell. I'm getting tired of it. I'm not trying to downplay Kelsey Mitchell. I'm not trying to make it seem like she's a bum, but I don't like the fact that people are making it seem like the Indiana Fever ride or die off of Kelsey Mitchell all of a sudden. What are you talking about? The Indiana Fever ain't become a powerhouse till Caitlin Clark got there. Kelsey Mitchell never won more than 13 games her whole career before Clark got there.
Let's have an honest conversation today, one that a lot of people might not want to hear, but absolutely needs to be said. The Indiana Fever has become one of the most talked about franchises in all of women's basketball, and for good reason. But somewhere along the way, the narrative got twisted. All of a sudden, people are acting like Kelsey Mitchell is the heart and soul of this organization, like the Fever can't survive without her, like she's the reason any of this happened. And respectfully, that is simply not true. Let me be clear before we go any further. This is not about disrespecting Kelsey Mitchell as a player. She has talent. She can score. She has put in years in Indianapolis. None of that is being questioned here. What is being questioned, what needs to be challenged, is the idea that the Indiana Fever as we know it today, the franchise on the rise, the one drawing sellout crowds and national attention, has anything to do with Kelsey Mitchell being the driving force. It doesn't. And the numbers tell that story loud and clear. Here is the hard fact that no one seems to want to confront. In Kelsey Mitchell's time as the primary option on this team, from 2018 all the way up until Caitlin Clark arrived, the Indiana Fever never won more than 13 games in a season. Not once. 13 wins in a season. That's not a playoff team. That's not a team building toward anything. That's a team spinning its wheels, going nowhere fast, and the ball was in Kelsey Mitchell's hands every single night. 16 points per game, year after year. And the result was a franchise stuck at the bottom of the standings, giving away lottery picks and watching their fan base slowly disappear. Now think about what happened the moment Caitlin Clark stepped through the door. Overnight, and we mean overnight, everything changed. The arenas filled up. The national broadcast deals came rushing in. The merchandise flew off the shelves. Women's basketball in Indiana wasn't just relevant again, it became must-watch television for the entire country. That is not a coincidence. That is not a fluke. That is the unmistakable impact of a once-in-a-generation talent walking into a locker room and changing everything around her. And yet, somehow, there are people out there trying to push the narrative that the Fever owe Kelsey Mitchell something, that they need to structure their future around her, that she is deserving of a supermax contract that would handcuff this franchise just as they are finally starting to build something real.
What are we really talking about here? Yes, she can give you 20 points. Yes, she's fast. Yes, she's a bucket. You mean to tell me there's no other shooting guards the Indiana Fever can get? You don't even got to give us 20 points. Get somebody who can get you 14, 15 points. Clark can score. We're literally watching her hold back from scoring because of Kelsey Mitchell, who has to take 17, 18 shots a game.
With all due respect, that argument falls apart the moment you look at the history. Let's talk about last season specifically, because this is where it gets really interesting. A lot of people have been saying things like, oh, Kelsey Mitchell helped lead the Fever to the playoffs last season. But hold on, let's slow down and look at the full picture. Aaliyah Boston was on that roster. When Odyssey Sims stepped in, she was producing. When Aja McDonald got her opportunities, she made the most of them. Natasha Howard brought veteran presence. This was not a one-woman show. This was a team effort, and reducing that to Kelsey Mitchell carried them is doing a disservice to every other player who showed up and competed. The real engine of this franchise, the reason anyone is watching, the reason sponsors are paying attention, the reason the WNBA is in a renaissance period right now is Caitlin Clark. Full stop. No asterisks, no qualifiers. Caitlin Clark changed women's basketball, and she did it almost immediately upon entering the league. She nearly won Rookie of the Year in one of the most competitive drafts the WNBA has seen in years. She brings a dimension to this game that the Fever simply never had before, a player who forces defenses to respect her from 40 feet out, who can create for teammates, who elevates every single person on the floor with her. So when we talk about what the Indiana Fever should be building toward, the answer should be crystal clear. Build around Caitlin Clark. Get her the right pieces. Get her players who will dive on loose balls, who will scrape their knees on the hardwood, who will do all the dirty work that makes a superstar's life easier. Build her a team that can chase championships, not just make the playoffs, but actually compete for titles. And here is where the honest evaluation of Kelsey Mitchell has to be made. She is a third option on this team at best. When you have Caitlin Clark in the backcourt and Aaliyah Boston in the post, you have two legitimate stars who can anchor a championship caliber roster. Adding Kelsey Mitchell, we're a player whose ceiling we already know, whose limitations we have already seen across 8 years, does not push this team over the top. It doesn't. It's comfortable, it's familiar, but comfortable and familiar don't win rings. What the Fever needs is players who fit around Clark the way great supporting casts fit around great players throughout basketball history. Players who are willing to sacrifice, who hustle hustle, who compete on both ends of the floor. What about Lexi Hull? Here's a player who brings exactly that kind of energy. Someone who impacts the game in ways the box score doesn't fully capture, who can defend, who can make open shots, who makes winning plays. That is the kind of player you build a championship roster around your superstar with. The conversations about Kelsey Mitchell's future in Indiana need to be grounded in reality. If she wants a supermax contract, if her camp is looking for the kind of money that would make her the second highest paid player on this roster, that is her right. She has earned the right to get paid, but the Fever have also earned the right to be honest with themselves about what this team needs to be in order to compete for a championship. And paying a third option supermax money is not the move. This is a pivotal moment for the Indiana Fever organization. For the first time in a very long time, this franchise has genuine star power. They have a player in Caitlin Clark who people tune in to watch from all across the country, who sells out arenas on the road, who has fundamentally altered the economics of women's professional basketball. Wasting that window by misallocating resources, by being sentimental rather than strategic, would be a mistake that could set this franchise back significantly. Think about the broader context of what is happening in women's basketball right now. The WNBA is experiencing a level of popularity it has never seen before. Television ratings are up dramatically. Attendance records are being broken. New expansion franchises are being added. Sponsorship dollars are pouring in at a rate that would have seemed impossible just 5 years ago, and the person most responsible for that momentum at the league level and the player who made casual sports fans stop scrolling and start watching is Caitlin Clark. That matters deeply when we talk about the Fever's obligations and priorities, because when you have the player who is driving the cultural moment, your entire organizational philosophy has to be aligned with maximizing that player's opportunity to win. You cannot afford distractions. You cannot afford bad fits. And most importantly, you cannot afford to spend significant salary cap resources on a player whose production and fit do not clearly justify the investment when that money could be deployed elsewhere to make the team better. Let's also be real about the kind of player the Fever need to surround Clark with going forward. You need versatility, you need defenders, you need players who can stretch the floor and open up driving lanes. You need someone who can guard the other team's best perimeter player so that Clark doesn't have to expend all of her energy on the defensive end. What you do not necessarily need is another ball-dominant scorer who is going to require a high volume of possessions to be effective. The Fever's offense already flows through Clark, and that is the way it should be, but the other pieces around her need to complement that reality rather than compete with it. This is where the conversation about Kelsey Mitchell's long-term future in Indiana has to move from sentiment to strategy. Mitchell is a good player. Again, nobody is taking that away from her, but good players on the wrong teams for the wrong prices become organizational problems. They become trade rumors, they become locker room tension, they become the story when the story should be about Caitlin Clark helping the Fever chase a championship. There is also something worth examining in the way certain segments of the fan base have reacted to all of this. There is a protectiveness over Kelsey Mitchell that, when you examine it honestly, seems to have more to do with familiarity and nostalgia than with a cold-blooded assessment of what she brings to this team in its current form. People watched her play for years when the Fever were bad. They appreciate her perseverance. They know her story, and all of that is meaningful on a human level. But basketball operations cannot be run on sentiment. They have to be run on evaluation and vision. The vision for the Indiana Fever has never been clearer. It is a franchise in the early stages of a genuine contention window built around one of the most transcendent players the league has ever seen. The decisions made in the next year or two about roster construction, about contracts, about which players wear Fever uniforms alongside Caitlin Clark will define whether this team actually capitalizes on that window or simply treads water and hopes for the best. The truth is simple, even if it's uncomfortable. The Indiana Fever's path to glory runs directly through Caitlin Clark. Everything else, every roster decision, every contract negotiation, every trade consideration should be evaluated through that lens. What makes Caitlin Clark better? What gives her the best chance to win? What brings a championship to Indianapolis? Those are the only questions that matter right now. Kelsey Mitchell has been a part of this franchise through its darkest years. She showed up, she competed, she gave the organization something to build on during a period when building felt almost impossible. That loyalty deserves genuine respect and acknowledgement. But loyalty doesn't build winners. Strategy does. Honesty does. Making the right calls, even when they are uncomfortable calls, that is what winning organizations do. The Fever have a chance at something truly special. A player like Caitlin Clark comes along once in a generation, if that. The window to build around her, to put the right pieces around her, to create a team that can compete for WNBA championships, that window is open right now. Don't waste it by holding on to the past when the future is standing right in front of you, waiting to be seized. The harsh truth is always easier to ignore, but the teams that face it head on are the ones that end up hoisting trophies.